And welcome back, everyone. It's another Friday here. Late evening on the East Coast. Time is over there. And Bowdy might join us this afternoon. She might be also joined with another instructor, but forgot to mute it on one side or the other. Mute. There we go. All right, still learning the system, but getting it down. All right, so we last week we talked about test questions and test hacks and things that we can do to help us attacking the exam. And those 40 questions, they aren't particularly hard or easy. They're right down the middle. They're supposed to be at least. Now, they are technical in what we were talking about as far as the terminology and how it's being used. But, on actual exam day, there could be test questions that are much more challenging, other questions that are much easier. Right? It's just right down the middle. All right. So, the next thing we're going to discuss is applying for the PMP exam. So when you go to apply for the PMP exam, right, you're going to go to the PMI webpage. And that is one of the mistakes those students always make is they, want to think for whatever reason that PMI and whatever course they're a part of are the same thing, and they aren't, right? So PMI is an organization made up of project managers who are meant to archive and, best practice and publish best practice to share with others. And all right, well, and create this PMP certificate thing, which just so happens to make a lot of money. So the certification itself is just a cert that PMI offers, not I mean, it's the main one, but there are others, and they're adding to this and taking away from it all the time. But you can go here to certifications and see, they're calling their core certs now, and then also you can see some of the other ones. You know, oh, it's got Mark just jumped in. All right, so when it comes to the certifications from PMI, there are several, you could choose from, but the PMP certificate is by far its most popular one. So if you're going to apply for this thing, right, you click here on, the PMP, pay or CAPM, sorry, and there we go, PMP, and that's how you apply for the exam, right through this page. And it's right here where it has a button, boom, it says mine says view application. Yours would say apply now. And there's Mark. Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
No, maybe.
Can you hear me?
Microphone got you. I can't hear
No.
you.
Oh,
Unfortunately, the mute button. Maybe, maybe not.
interesting.
No, still can't hear you though. That's weird. No, 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 you were. That's just weird. Let's try that again.
Unmute me? How about that?
All right. Interesting. No, we can't hear you, but it'll be fine. The good news is that we get to edit these videos afterwards. Drink in hand. Let me see here. How do I? What is this? If I try, this will have an echo though.
Anything?
No, it still says you're muted. Try it. Nothing. Nothing. Select microphone.
Yeah, I tried switching
Turn turn
microphones.
the physical mute button on microphone, maybe.
Nothing now?
No.
No?
Okay.
Hmm.
Sometimes that gets me. There's an actual mute button there, and I forget to push it, but whatever. All right. Well, if you want to comment in the chat, you can also do that, I guess. I could just call you and have you
I don't know why it's not
have a
working.
FaceTime conversation with you at the same time.
Hmm.
Hmm. Now Mark will join us again. Anyway, um, so Mark's another instructor. He's been teaching PMP classes for several companies. He's been doing it for almost 5 years or something. Now it's been a while. I'll have to ask him when he comes back on. But he also teaches Lean Six Sigma courses. He also teaches Agile courses. So he knows the certification world and the different tests that are out there. And he's also a former military guy. So he transitioned from the Navy 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and he now works in the DC area. But if Mark does join us, you have a good perspective from students having questions about their applications. And that's what we were talking about originally. So let's go back to talking about applications here. So when it comes to the applications, on the PMI webpage, all you have to do is click here where you'll just apply now. Mine says view account or something. It looks different if you're a member, but anyway, that's where you start. And from there, it's going to ask you a couple of things. It's going to prompt you to like fill out, basic information about yourself. But before you do any of that, I believe it's going to have you, become a member of PMI. So when you're becoming a member of PMI, the you can take you don't have to, be a member to take the test, right? There's the test fee and everything, but membership comes with it, like, other responsibilities, and, not necessarily, but supposedly you can run for office with PMI and you can go to the PMI chapter meeting, supposedly you can, right? But not everyone really participates with their membership. They just use the membership because it makes the test cheaper. Yeah, it's all right. So if we scroll down here, it tells you on the actual web page the going rate for the exam and how much cheaper it is if you're a member. Was it the top? It was at the top, wasn't it? No. Um, I believe it's like 600 something dollars now if you're not a member. And yeah, so basically the PMI membership is about the same price you end up lowering the test fees for. So it's like a free membership for a year, essentially, um, when you're taking your PMP exam. And I would suggest that you do it. Um, the the membership comes with other thing. There's other discounts involved, right? So if you wanted to go to study hall, if you wanted to use some of the other PMI stuff, that's available to you. Also, you can check out, with PMI membership, the books, right? The different PMBOK guide, Agile practice guide, the different things that are tested, and research those, and you don't have to buy them separately, right? And so buying those books separately might add up to the cost of the membership in itself, right? So I looked at it that way. Is when it comes to, like, taking the exam, being a member versus not being a member, I would choose, being a member because you get all the materials for free, right? Well, nearly free, but then, you have a free membership, right? And you can use that to network or whatever you'd like. Anyway, so I'm an advocate for it. Whether you do it or not, it's up to you. There are plenty of people who do not become PMI members but still take the PMP exam. That's fine. You can still be a PMP holder. All right, I know plenty of people like that. But it's up to you if you want to be a member or not. And then there is like membership dues for each one of the different, areas. Like here in the North Virginia chapter, it has its own dues on top of it. So that could also be something that affects your decision. But anyway, that's the first thing you're going to wind up doing when you're actually applying for the test, right? It's going to ask you to fill out your membership. So it's basic stuff: name, region, email address, a password, and you're off and running. All right. The registration part, no big deal. It's basically the same information then when it comes to the application for the PMP exam. It's the same name, address, and everything they grab for your PMI registration. So a lot of that copies and pastes over into your PMP application now. And when you're filling it out, the first thing you're going to run up against is about education. Like, what track are you on? And you see that on the PMI website. They talk about the three different tracks, right? That there's those who have a master's degree from an organization that works with PMI, which is extremely rare. You would know whether or not you're in that track. It would not be a surprise to you. Yeah, anyway. So like there's very few people in that track, but they have less months worth of experience. They need 24 months. The one that almost all students are in, or probably the majority, are the track with a 4-year degree. You have a college degree, whether that degree is in engineering or ballet, it doesn't matter. You need a 4-year degree. You have a 4-year degree, and then you'll need 36 months of project management experience to take the PMP exam. If you do not have a college degree, you'll just need more experience running projects. So for those with associates or a GED, you just need 60 months worth of project experience now, and you can still take the test. I know plenty of PMP holders in that position, right? And I have never had anyone ask me about my MBA. Once I had a PMP, I don't even put it behind my name anymore. It just says Mike Strachan, comma PMP. So anyway, the when it comes to like you're at a top education level, that's what determines what track you're on. All right. So once you're on, let's say that middle track, you have a, an undergraduate degree and you're going after this PMP thing. All right. So the next thing is you have to fill out the 36 months worth of experience. All the months have to be relatively recent within the last 8 years. And then when you're filling them out, like it's like checking the box. If you put a project that ran August through September of 2024, you're checking the box for August, you know, September, October, whatever the months were, I said earlier. You're checking the box on each one of them, and then done. You've got those months worth of experience. And so for every project entry you're filling out, all right, that's how you tick off those months worth of experience. So you're entering projects in the application, not your job title. And that's the big mistake I see people making is they think they can just take their job title from Deloitte and copy and paste it in there and think everything's going to be all right. It doesn't work, right? You have to go beyond like just saying that you worked at that organization for the last 7 years and ran 13 projects, done. PMI is going to say, okay, and what were the projects? So every entry on the application is a project and you're describing it. All right, and that's where most of the people run into problems. Everything up until that point is pretty cake. All right, so now whether you have an undergrad or you don't, everyone has to put down experience in projects, everyone. So let's talk a little bit about the write-ups. And Mark, if you can unmute your microphone, I see you just logged back in. You, can I hear you now?
Let's see if you can you hear me now?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Everything is green.
Nothing.
Oh
I
my
don't know what
God.
the heck.
I don't know, dude.
Sorry, bud. Well,
All right. Well, I tried.
you can always try communicating in the chat. Like call in. I don't know if you could call me right now with that create goblins in the system that destroy the video. Huh. Yeah, my speakers are up. You know what? Oh man, it could be using my microphone as my speakers. I haven't seen it do that before. Let's see here. Select speakers, MacBook. Test.
Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
yeah, I do now. It was
Okay.
1,000% my fault.
I was like, man, I don't know. It's green. Everything's green. I don't know what else to press.
So I usually work over there, but like it's a greenhouse, and so like the sound sounds like garbage.
Yeah.
It's like an office, so I move in here to do this. And so when I did that, I plugged the microphone in. It probably just picked up the microphone as being both speaker and microphone. Great. Lesson learned.
Figured it out.
Lesson learned.
Technology. Technology.
Had everything else on time. I was, ready to rock and roll, unlike last week. And gets us. But all right, no worries. So like I was telling everyone earlier, and I'll probably, wind up editing this down a bunch. All right. But Mark Francesco, also an instructor, been teaching PMP courses, Lean Six Sigma courses, Agile courses, and more, I'm sure. Those are the ones I've seen you teach. Um, all in the DC area. How's it going, Mark?
Going good, man. You got a little application conversation going on here?
Yeah, we're talking about the PMP application and navigating the write-ups, really. That's what we're mainly going to talk about.
It's come a long way. It's come a
Oh,
long way. So just follow the Mike method and you'll get through every time. And if you don't and you get audited, it's not a big deal. It's no sweat whatsoever.
it used to be this big giant pain in the butt, and that's where a lot of the rumors come from. All right. And so like I was just thinking back, like what are like some of the worst application stories as an instructor, and I'm sure you can think of a bajillion now. But
Oh
like
yeah.
when like usually the students have the same problem about, does my time count? Right? Does my time
Hmm.
count? And does my time count? And there's always somebody who wants to bend what the definition of a project is to like make this thing work out. Yeah, but I've had, people from all different industries, taking the exam, and
Hmm.
PMI is fairly loose on what they call a project, right? But
Hmm.
you always have like that one person who's trying to write something as they were the project manager when they weren't. kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that a lot of the students that we have come through our classes think that they can't be project managers because what they do and their title in their actual job is not project manager. And that's okay because the things that we do that make us a project manager still meet that definition according to PMI, and that's what they're looking for, and that's what matters. So there's a big, misconception like, oh, I can't get my PMP because by title I'm not a project manager. That's really not an accurate statement.
That's a great point. And when I was filling out my application, nowhere on it was my like duty title project manager. It was, platoon leader,
Yeah.
XO, or officer in charge or something. PMI knows this. They know that no one like actually uses their terms. Everyone has their own version of the term. PMI
Hmm.
gives the umbrella lexicon like the term project manager. Or it could be called a lead developer in that organization. In the military, it's called officer in charge or voluntold.
Yeah.
In Agile, it's Scrum Master. There's different names and different amounts of power they have, but it's all the same thing to PMI, project manager. So just because you're not titled doesn't mean you can't fill out the application.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then it usually goes for military guys. It's usually the number one question I'm getting is, can I fill out the application? How do I write my write-ups?
Hmm.
Yeah. Other than that, I was just thinking of problems. Like, have you had anyone like nightmare application get kicked back and kicked back and kicked back?
Uh, I've had a few that even after some coaching, they still had, because there is a human involved with the review too, right? So that's still there, and that's a wild card. You might get somebody, like Betsy from HR who hates her life, and she's reading these applications and is like, you don't deserve to be a project manager, and they come in and they're just like, no, and that happens still. So. Um, the ones that are overly scrutinized that come back, they do a good. PMI does do this really well. They'll tell you specifically what you didn't do, and they'll tell you to fix it and make sure that it's aligned to this. It's very objective in that sense. So it's almost a good thing whenever it does come back to you because it really kind of tells you specifically what you have to change in order for it to get approved. So
Mhm.
they almost give you like a pass, if you will. And that's another thing is like everybody's so afraid of the audit just happening off the bat, but in reality, if for some reason they're not happy with how it's written that first time, they're gonna give you that reply and say, please change your application to meet this criteria based on these bullets. And it gives you a chance to go back and get that fixed. Um, I haven't had anything like that, but I've only had one person fail the audit, and that was previous to the project, to the change with the new exam format and the new application format. And that was because the person that was supposed to endorse his examination was overseas and unavailable.
Mhm.
And when he had reached out to her to endorse his projects, she was, fighting the war on terrorism in a different country. So she was unavailable. And even in that scenario, like, yeah, that wasn't great. But worst case is his application got rejected. He failed the audit. He submitted it again in 12 months and then passed his exam on the first try. So it's all about wanting to get it and figuring out how to get it done and not taking no for an answer.
Definitely. I've had several people get kicked back from an audit and like they get selected for audit, they're mad, they go through the audit, and the auditor kicks them back and they try again. All right, and they eventually get through and then they get their PMP, right? So it's about the want to. Um, it's not the end of the world if you get audited. And it does the problem I have with their replies, typically like the email you get is very generic. You
Yeah.
got kicked back, for most likely it was for these reasons, and they list like the top reasons and not saying specifically why yet. You've got to reach out to them after that email, I believe, and that's when you get the this is exactly why.
Hmm.
And it's typically a problem with your write-up and that you describe something that wasn't a project or something that sounded like a job title instead of a project, which is what everyone does. You know, um, so we're going to talk about those things today and how to write these things up so it passes on the first go and it doesn't become a problem. And for me, like as an instructor, I always see the best friends Excel file on how to fill out application. Right? It's
Mm.
like if my friend's way of doing this work, and they have some template they want to use from their buddy. They don't understood. They took the exam back in 19 dickety 2, and things have changed. Right? Like the application doesn't ask
Yeah.
for hours anymore. And so there's a lot of things on these old school templates that we used to use for writing this application that no longer apply. Right? They're just worthless. So, stick to this nice and simple structure to filling out your write-ups, and you're answering the basic question. The reviewer has to determine whether or not what you did was running a project. So the main thing you should say is that it was a project and that you ran it. And done. If you're wasting sentences on anything other than that, you're wasting your time. So yes, they give you 200 to 500 words, but I mean, there's nothing can probably piss off the reviewer more than somebody who uses all 500 words,
Hmm.
for every one of their entries, and they have like 20 entries. Do yourself a favor, get in and get out of there. All right, just tell them you ran it, it was a project, and you're done. All right, and it's also when they were talking about whether or not it was a project, PMI publishes the definition of a project in the PMBOK guide. Right, it's temporary, and the organization chose to do this thing to make some sort of deliverable. Right, so as long as you have deliverables and you prove that it was meant to end, it was designed to end, right, then you're golden. All right. So knowing this, that's what we're trying to do. That's where the template comes from. That I led and managed a project for whoever from blank month to blank month, I led and managed this project for XYZ organization. Hooray. You don't have to be very specific with it. Stay high level. All right. They don't care. They're not going to read the rest of this novel. They just want the highlights. In fact, it's
Hmm.
probably AI reviewing it anyway. Okay. So my job as project manager included, so this is blank. Your job might not have been project manager. My job as lead developer, acting as project manager, included blank. Right. So, or you could say like my job as acting project manager, sure. It's up to you how you word it, included blank. And then you say the things that you did. You should know the things that you did. That's the part that's not the template because you did them. Right? Okay. Now, the key project deliverable piece is where you say what the project actually made. What was the point of the project? Why did we do this? And if you're talking about like a report, like you say, my job was to create reports, that's the deliverable. Like I hear that all the time from people. And it sounds like your project exists to report on itself. Like, okay, so weekly status reports and things, that's not a deliverable. The deliverable might be like the final report about some process that's approved and signed. That's possible. Typically, a deliverable is like a bridge or some sort of new, you know, functionality, something. It's something tangible. We're going to save it and hold on to it and sell it, whatever. But the actual definition for what is a project deliverable is given to us in the PMBOK guide as well. And there's 4 types, right? It's a unique product, a unique service, a unique result, or a combination of unique product, service, or result. All right. So if you don't know, if you want to make it really easy for them, where it says my key project deliverables were, spell it out. Like my key project deliverable was a key result summarized in the blah, blah, blah report, named this and this, published on this date and accepted by the customer on this date or whatever, and done. So know what PMI is using to review your application, the definition of a deliverable and the definition of a project. Use this framework. It's too easy. Okay. Mark, what's some things that stand out to you?
Yeah, I think the key is, like you said, just having this format and something to follow. I think where people get kind of caught up is that they write these essays. I know I'll be running classes, and then I'll dedicate some time to help everybody, get through this piece, and not through all of the experiences, but at least one, so they have an idea of what to do. And I mean, I'll get a novel. I mean, there's a plot twist, there's a weird ending, there's characters. I'm like, look, this is a lot. Like, I don't like to read.
Yeah.
You already lost me. So like, it's important to stick to the script, and when in doubt, you can also just bulletize it. There's not a formatting constraint when it comes to the application now, like there used to be before. There's character limits and stuff like that, or word limits now. But the big thing is just you want to really be clear and concise about what your role was and what you did, and that's how you tell the story. You don't tell the story with like APA format and Times New Roman 12 font. Like it's not. We're not in English class. It's best if you just take that opportunity to write some clear and concise bullets and follow that format like Mike showed you, so you can be real specific about the action items that they're looking for.
That's it. Also, I always tell people to write the dang application as though you know you're going to be audited, right? Just assume that you're
Mhm.
going to be audited when you write it. So with every single one of your application write-ups, you need a point of contact. Someone who's going to say, yes, those are the things you actually did. It doesn't have to be your boss, right? In fact, there's a little drop-down menu. You can select who they are, and key stakeholders, one of the anyway. So when it comes to putting up a point of contact, make sure you have a good point of contact for every one of them, because if you get audited, that's what usually holds you up, is getting that point of contact to sign off. All right, so that's point one when it comes to writing it as though you know you're going to be audited. Point two, all right, the audit gets harder with the more project entries you have. So try to have as few entries as possible. Don't use the coolest projects. No one cares. As Mark said, there's no Emmy for the best application, bro. Like, whatever the Writers Guild hands us out for the best script, I don't know. Right?
Uh,
But like,
Nobel Prize?
no,
No.
that's like physics or something. But like when it comes to like the application, there's no point in bloviating on it. Just knock it out and be done. All right. Other than the normal pitfalls, the other questions I tend to get are like, what happens if I have to reschedule my exam? Do you get that one ever? Like, what if I might
Oh
be
yeah.
sick, or I have like doctor's appointments I can't control. I schedule my exam and the doctor's appointment hits it. How do I reschedule? Do you get that? Go ahead and field that one, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, like, they make it a lot easier than they used to. And it's kind of evolved a lot, especially since COVID and the fear of being in person and all those things. So I would just say, the big thing is if you're in one of our classes, the good news is you have a direct line to help walk you through processes like that. But at the end of the day, PMI has really changed a lot of their protocols and how difficult it is to do things like that. Even with disability accommodations and being able to take the exam under different circumstances. I had a female student. She was like 8 months pregnant, taking the PMP, and she contacted PMI when she was doing the application. She rescheduled and she made sure she had the ADA accommodations, which really just provided her extra bathroom breaks throughout the course of the exam. So they're a little bit more flexible than they used to be, and I think that's because the culture kind of shifted at that organization, a few years back. So
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. And I
that's what
remember,
the handbook is. You got to read the handbook. That's why I tell everybody, like,
yeah, always, yeah,
whatever we say is, it's good, but it's good for the day that we say it. Because you know
yeah.
what, if something happens and they go back and they change the handbook, we don't know. So we always defer to the handbook for students to look at the protocol and like the processing times and costs, because those things can change without us knowing it, and want to be in the know.
That's a good call. I'll put that like link in the description too to go right to the handbook. People don't even know where it is. It's kind of ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
The two things that you should definitely have as a test taker, one, the exam content outline where PMI tells you the exam's content as an outline, and then two, the test taker's handbook, which tells you how to reschedule or because there's a fee. It's not free. When
Mhm.
you reschedule, if it's like 72 hours out, you're paying the entire exam fee. You might as well just take it at that point. So, the rules are explained there for everyone, but don't think that PMI is going to accommodate for you like the day of. You need to get it, ahead of it and figure out, who the point of contact is and reach out to them weeks in advance, not hours in advance. Um, Other thing we used to get out bathroom breaks and like how it works, and it's changed a lot since we've gone from different so PMI doesn't issue the test, right? There are, companies that proctor exams, and PMI's used several of them over the years. Nowadays they use Pearson VUE. You know,
Mhm.
haven't heard much negative about Pearson VUE and how they interpret rules with bathrooms and things. Sometimes the bathrooms are in the testing room. Sometimes the bathrooms are outside the testing room. And so like when you go through the testing room, it's like a little mini TSA, you're getting screened in. And if it's outside, and like if the bathroom's outside the testing room, you have to keep going back and forth through the, screening. Maybe you don't use that testing center, right? Visit, the testing centers, get to know their rules. They'll tell you, each one of them is an independent franchise. They want your money. Make them earn it. Go there. Be like, I'm thinking of using your facility if it's good enough to take my
Yeah.
PMP exam. And that them lead you around. They'll show you around. All right. So the exam day questions are a little different than application ones. Let's see. The other one I commonly get is, what if I had two projects that overlap with one another? Right? I have one project that started in, early 2024, another one that started, mid 2024, and they overlap by 2 months. How does that work? What do you got, Mark?
So for the projects, it's you got to think about it like getting double credit, like or you double dipping on projects. They're typically, even though there's real world, right? And then there's theory. And, in theoretically, you know, what they care about is you have to get 36 months of project. They're not going to give you more than that, or 60, depending on the level of education, right? But the sequence is what matters. And even though in your job you're doing 10 projects at once, they don't care. You can't get credit for 10 things at once in order to meet that criteria. So you'll have one project, typically, let's just say anywhere between 12 to 16 months, and then that project will end. That's what the waterfall method, traditionally speaking. But you can have some overlap. Just know that the months of overlap that you have with those two projects, you're only going to get credit towards one. You won't get credit towards two. So typically, I'll have students, just really reevaluate the timeline and understand, like, when the discovery of that project is happening, the pre-work of that project, like the discussions with stakeholders, the business case analysis, and you're actually a resource on that effort. Like I start the timer. That counts because I'm working towards that project. Okay. So maybe it doesn't count on your system, but in reality, it does. So you do have some flexibility with the start and finish date. Use that to your advantage whenever you're doing your application, and try to get the most bang for your buck. What you don't want to do is do 36 months and have like seven different projects. That's just going to be bad news. It's more for you to write, it's more for them to scrutinize. There's a lot of potential for error there. So try to keep it simple. I always recommend for my students who have the 36-month information to fill out. I just recommend that they usually do, no more than four, like between 2 to 4. So three being a sweet spot for projects, but it varies. I've seen one, I've seen five. It just depends on the type of work that you do.
And it does seem like people who write just one tend to get more scrutiny.
Yeah,
I've
totally.
seen I've seen them be much more picky with those. Would have
Hmm.
had it been like one project of many, that would have been fine with it. But I've had a lot of like nuclear engineers that like their projects like a decade. So they're all
Yeah.
like one entry and done. But yeah, they usually get some extra scrutiny in that case. But that is, in my opinion, the perfect application. Just one massive project, application over.
Yeah.
Nice and simple. And I did say it earlier. I talked about it earlier, but like it's just the drop down right on the menu. I didn't look at it, but the current price for the PMP exam, 675.
Oof.
675. Man, it's gone up
It's
like
going up.
$175 more if
Inflation.
I took it. So if you're a member, it's 425. All right. So I imagine membership dues have gone up as well. Because
Do you think
usually
that do you think that Trump is going to change the price of the PNP exam? Think Doge is
I
looking
can
into
see
PMI?
I can see Musk slashing away at it.
Oh yeah.
Chainsawing it. All right. All right. So when it comes to the actual paying of it, right? It's an expensive test. So you want to make sure you're getting this thing done. Now, the other questions I see with applications, other than the overlapping time period. There's one thing I wanted to talk about there when you're talking like double dipping and you know, you always tell somebody like if it's your first year out of college and you worked on 10 projects that first year, does that mean you have 10 years of experience? No, you have one, right? So that's that situation where you have overlapping projects, right? You already got the check mark for that month. It doesn't count twice. Um, the other ones I typically get about this, like, what if my project's ongoing? Right? You can use that, right? You just put the start month and then
Mm-hmm.
the current little drop down, right? It says present. And we were talking about like the when you're selecting projects about when it started. Great point. Like the initiating process group includes the ideas of selecting the project manager. It's about the
Mm-hmm.
organization doing that. And so as the project manager, when you're made aware of the project, it might not be real. It could be in good idea fairyland still. Like, well, we're thinking about going after this contract. We need some high level estimates. You help out, right? You're involved in that project. And
Yeah.
then it becomes real and then you're running it, great. That's just the evolution of the project life cycle. No one says you have to be like, burning X amount of calories per project. It's like, when did you find out that you're going to be running this thing? And you use that. So like for my military ones, for all of you guys in transition, it was that you find out about your mission from like hires Warno or something like that. And you're like, oh, that's going to come down to me most likely. Right? It's all whisper, mill and good idea fairyland. It's not real yet until the orders are published, but you're already planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that time counts. So when you start to think about your missions and project, things that you've done in the military, you start to realize you have tons of time, right? And in the private sector, it's the same thing. You get you told, either voluntold or someone whispers about like this project going on, and it's a good idea fairyland. It's not real yet, right? But that time still counts when you're filling out the application. And for some organizations, the good idea fairyland is months long until it becomes a real project. Just depends.
Yeah.
Good point. All right. So if we're filling out the application and using and I will put the actual in the description the template that I always use. All right. So usually the one area of that template that will get people is the end part where it says, the project had X number of phases or iterations, and ended when. This is designed to tell the reader that this was supposed to end, right? This endeavor has some intelligent design to it. We're trying to complete something. It wasn't trying to like sustain itself. All right, so I always tell people like when you plan out a kitchen remodel, that's a project. But when you plan out a fish tank, all right, that's operations, all right? Because like a fish tank's meant to sustain, you're going to keep it going, all right? You don't really have an end site in mind for the fish tank. You're going to keep it going. But when you're planning out a kitchen remodel, you have some end state in mind, what you want done. All right, that's how projects should work. All right, so there should be some ending in mind with it. So we say had X number of phases and ended when X occurred. All right, and it tells the reader that okay, it was designed to end great. Now, if it's an agile project, use iterations. Like the project had X number of iterations or sprints and ended when we met the definition of done and high five the product owner and hooray, Chuck E. Cheese. Whatever. Yeah. So I'm not saying that because you're running agile projects, you celebrated Chuck E. Cheese. That wasn't what I was saying. That's what you heard. But anyway, so when it comes to this thing, it's been used by thousands of my students with very little problems. Now, the ones that deviate from it tend to see problems, and then I'm like, well, why'd you deviate from it? But there are other ways of filling out your application. And by all means, if you want to try those, go for it. Let me know which ones worked for you, which ones didn't. This is just me having taught way over 3,000. I stopped counting the students in 2018 when I got to 3,000. This has been what I've been using, even with the different exam changes and things. All right, this has been the core template for this application. All right. Other application questions or other nightmares you can think of with applications?
um, just knowing that it times out. I don't know if you covered that 12 months. So I've had students that started it, life happens, forget about it. It'll save and it'll tell you when it'll be deleted. So try to get that done and get that updated. Also, I think best practice for our students we try to do is when you're completing the experience description, like Mike was showing you with that template, and you're talking about the project work that you've done, I think it's important for you to do that on a separate document, like a Word document, or if you prefer Excel, or whatever makes you happy. But you want to make sure that you're writing out your descriptions, your experiences on a separate document, and then you're copying and pasting them over. Because if you're just writing it in the actual application, and maybe you take your dog out, or you forget, times out, you get word stumped, you eat dinner, feed the kids, whatever happens, you come back, it's going to be gone. All right. It doesn't do the best job at saving it in real time. So it's important for you to save that stuff on a separate document so you have it, especially if you're working with like an exam coach and you're getting it reviewed and getting input. You want to be able to share that stuff versus like just, trying to submit it all in one shot.
That's a good point. For a lot of students, they're in a boot camp or a class like the ones we would.
Mhm.
And when students have an Excel file or a Word file that covers all their write-ups, it makes it really easy to do the editing with them. There are plenty of students that send me just a PDF of the application all filled out. Like you get it all filled out, hit print, save, send it
Yeah.
all the time. And I'll make my comments, but I can't like help you out that much with it.
It's already
Uh,
submitted. What are you going to do?
hopefully I haven't hit
So,
submit yet. I mean, you
looks
can
looks
save it,
great,
right?
guys. Good job.
Yeah,
Thanks for the PDF, but
yeah.
all right, we'll see what happens.
I've had that happen before.
By the way, I didn't realize how much I missed this picture until I just saw it right now.
I'm never changing it.
I haven't seen this in so long. It just makes me happy just looking at it.
I'm never gonna change it. That's decided that was me a long time ago, and I'm just
You're
not
gonna
gonna.
be like 90. You're gonna be like, back in my day. Look, and the picture's still up there.
I always used to make fun of the dudes you'd see like wearing their hat, with their unit on it or their boat they were on it, and I was like, man, these old
That's
guys.
us now, man.
I know. Now I'm like, what do I get one of those hats?
We're the old veterans.
Those little crusty guys. All right. So anyway, when you're a PMI member, this is like your little dashboard. And like I was saying earlier, it might be worth it for you to do the membership thing. I mean, it does knock off a significant amount of the test now. It's $675. All right, but if we go to like certifications, right, we have all the ones you could apply to, but also if we go over here to learning, right, you'll see the PMBOK guide right here. Boom, PMBOK guide. Right, and then with membership, I can download, right? And so you can choose your language as well. So you want to read it in Spanish, or if you want to have it prop open a door in German, it can do that too. Or prop open a door in Spanish, it'll do that too. Yeah, so you can print it out. Or you actually can't print it, but you'll have your PDF version of it. That's another thing that sometimes people get all upset about. They can't print it. Yeah, so PMI protects their books and
Show
yeah,
them the watermark when you download it. As soon as you downloaded it, you're not. It's going to show Mike Strachan. It's going to
yeah,
show his member ID number, social security, birthday, his kids'
yeah.
socials, his kids' birth dates, his location, dog's name. You're not. That copy
And
is
this,
yours, and if anybody else is found with it, you're going to jail.
well,
All right,
PMI,
maybe not jail,
PMI,
but
yeah, yeah. So they have two punishments: suspension and banishment. I think you're getting banned. And that's the only time I've
yes,
heard them get people banned. People is like when they copied PMI stuff and tried to print it off or something. So yeah, just don't be that guy. I know there's ways to use Adobe to take that stuff off, but don't be that guy. All right. That's how to download the PMBOK. Now there are other books, right, that you should probably look at, like the Agile Practice Guide, and there's other things we could download. But if you wanted to take more like, in-depth approach to learning the topics, PMI Standards Plus is almost to the point that I recommend it now. It's been a couple of years of me making fun of it and kicking it while it's down, but we're almost at the point where I can say, hey, PMI Standards Plus is worth a buy, and maybe it's free for members, so that's worth it, right? But I think they sell it without membership for like $29 a month or something. Like, I don't know about that yet.
yeah.
It's been a laughing stock for like the last 3 years. How long has this been?
And my only plug on this is that some of us work at organizations that are going to fund like one membership a year, and it's not Planet Fitness. This is if I was going to have them pay for any membership annually on whatever basis, it would be this one, because there's so many things that you can do to capitalize on maintaining your credentials, staying up with the industry, and having a lot of resources at your disposal that you can use for functional, practical purposes in life, this is the membership I have them pay for. Everything else, I don't mind, whatever, but this is the one where I'm like, okay, perfect.
I mean, it helps with, the networking part, as well as lowering the test fees. Also, like myself, I've made a career out of just reading PMI's literature and helping others understand it, right? I mean, not just individuals, but companies and helping them create a project management office or consult on whatever project controls, right? All that stuff, for the most part, I'm learning the lingo from PMI's literature, but then I'm also able to connect the dots to things that I've seen, and I'm able to explain it to other people in a lingo they understand, which is the whole point of having the lexicon in PMI. But anyway, I
Hmm.
would say the membership is worth it because of all of the different downloads. Now, the PMI Standards Plus, this is what was ripped out of the seventh edition it's originally in the sixth. And it's the detailed conversation about all of the different tools, techniques, inputs, outputs, all of it. Right. Now, remember, you're not tested on that language, like what's an output versus what's an input. There's not going to test question like that, but you need to understand the terms. Right. So if they ask you about a scope management plan versus a schedule management plan, like you'd have to understand the difference between them in the context of that blah, 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 blah. All right. So when it comes to like that conversation, it's just not in the seventh edition. It's just high level. If you're really like in the weeds on a tool and technique, PMI Standards Plus. So with PMI Standards Plus, you'll get little classes of like little videos and things on the different topics, and it's not organized in the most logical way. They've been working on it. I can't say that because I haven't actually been on it in over a month. But let's see if I can access it. You know who I am. I'll add to cart and I'll mess with it later, I guess. All right, but I've been in and out of it over the years, and I'll figure it out later. All right, but anyway, you get like these little classes on whatever topic it is you wanted to explore more on, and it's good. But have you used the Infinity chatbot?
Me? I have not.
So it's probably, I think, better in some ways than PMI Standards Plus. I mean, all the
Mm.
same literature is in the chatbot, and you can ask it questions to get much faster replies. I mean, fish around on the Standards Plus webpage. But anyway, having membership allows you to use that too, the PMI's
Mhm.
chatbot. So I would say the membership is worth it in the long run. And if you're on the fence, I get it. All right.
Yeah, totally.
Um, Other nightmare application questions or problems. Oh, what I usually get is how long does it take? That's a common question. How long does this thing take? So typically 3 to 5 business days is what they tell you when they review. Um, so uh, if it takes more than like 5 business days, something's probably wrong. Right? Something's up. You might have been selected for audit and it, like picked up that email on your spam or something. So, I would be worried at that point. But for the most part, you're told if you're audited the moment you hit submit. Right? When you
Yeah.
hit submit, you're going to get an email from PMI. It's either saying, 3 to 5 business days you'll hear back from us, or you've been selected for audit. The other window for audit, I believe, has been taken out. There used to be another spot when you pay for your exam. Once your application's approved, you pay. And that was another spot that would audit you. But I don't believe they're doing that anymore. Now they're just
Mm.
increasing the number of audits at that front gate of when you hit submit. All over the years, there's been different audit windows, right, for all these randomized audits. But now with audits a lot easier. It's all cleared up online. You just give a point of contact for each one of your application, descriptions. You prove your education level with transcripts. And if you had like a 35-hour boot camp or class, you have a completion cert for that. If you used some shady off the streets Unity class, then you might run into problems with them not taking your 35 hours. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. All right. Um, Other than that, I'm trying to think of some nightmare scenarios I've had with students and where some pieces of knowledge we can add to this. I have had a student who failed the actual audit, reapplied, got audited again, failed that audit, reapplied, and then got through. I've had that recently.
Mm.
And that was because the person was trying to write all of their projects as one entry, right? Like the person didn't tell me until they
Yeah.
like their second failure and they reached out and I'm like, well, here's the problem. But I've had that happen. Um, I've had students come to me from other classes that, were audited and failed the audit or whatever. So here's the thing. If you applied before to the PMIs, any of their exams, their applications only last for 1 year, right? So let's say you fill out an application and it gets approved. You have 1 calendar year to get that cert, right? So if you're wondering if you need to fill out another application, it depends when did you apply first, right? Some people already have that application in and they don't need to. But there's also a limited number of tests you have, right? So if you get approved, you only have 3 attempts at taking the PMP exam.
Mm.
All right. So this same student, right, that failed the audit, right, and then failed the audit and eventually gets approved. All right. Um, if you fail the exam 2 times, right, then if there's 3 times, then you have to sit out a calendar year. So this person, rather than studying, decided they wanted to just take the exam. And so they went into the exam and failed to learn, like, because the company's picking up the check anyway, so who cares? All right, and then figured out what they could learn from that actual test. And then that person went and took the exam again and failed. Right. And then like, oh, now I need to really study. And so the person studied and then failed. And
Mm.
so three failures, all of them back to back to back to back. You didn't give yourself any time between those. Right. Because you can schedule your next test in about like 48 hours. It really depends on getting the payment process with PMI. But anyway, the thing is, if you fail all 3 attempts, you have to sit out 1 year. That's what he had to do. He had to wait a whole calendar year until that application had expired and then reapply and get 3 more attempts. And that's one of my failures of the 3 from 2019 to date. This gentleman. Definitely an anomaly.
Yeah. I think some oddballs. I had one student who didn't who I'm trying to think how to word this. So we helped him submit his application, okay? And his application got rejected, saying that they don't feel like he had enough experience, even though it met all the criteria and it was literally done by 3 people who had their exam and who had already been through this process, including myself. So the student, so he this is what they tell him. They say, "Hey, you need to fix these things, send it back." He does that. He said, "Look, we still don't have the warm fuzzy on your application. I think you need to go check out the help me out. What's the JV version? The
Cap.
Cap M. Yeah, they say, yeah, you're a Cap M, you're a Cap M candidate day in, day out, And he's like, what happened? I was like, I don't know, but let's do this. Just knock out the Cap M because we know you'll crush it because you've already been through a legitimate PMP boot camp. So takes the Cap M, crushes it, right? Gets this is like back in the day, so the 5, whatever, passes it, gets above in all categories. I said, hey, don't change your application because this is like 6 months later. I was like, don't touch it, just leave it there, and just add Cap M to it. And he submits it, gets through on the first try. Not a single question about it. Didn't change the experience, the write up, nada. Just
No.
added the Cap M, resubmitted it, got approved, took his PMP above in all categories. End of story. So sometimes, you might just get that person, and you have to understand, like, you can do everything right in that situation and still not get what you're looking for. It's just having that mindset that it's not a setback. You're going to figure it out and just get through it.
I have had a student, military background, submit their application and kicked back several times. And then
Same.
I started digging. I was like, why are you kicking this person back? Like, there's no reason. This just fits the definition of the project. And I start, getting into it with the reviewer, and I'm starting to wonder, oh, does this happen to many people, military people you've looked at? Because I don't think you understand.
Yeah.
And so I've had fights with them and successfully won those and gotten students approved. So
Yeah.
you have
Yeah,
it.
I've had probably two or three, and one we knew. Um, I think she was in one of our classes. She was like a really young, just finished grad school, like was probably still in grad school when she took the exam or on an internship when she
Yeah,
was in the boot camp or something like that. And I was just like, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. We're gonna do whatever we can, but I, I just don't know if it's gonna you have enough time because it's just the experience wasn't there. I mean, she's like 22, got her MBA early, worked like two projects on an internship for 12 months, and they just weren't having it. So I was like, hey, it's all good. We'll figure it out. Um,
that's interesting.
you exceeded your cloud storage
Probably. It's all right.
at the Casa, man.
Yeah. Well, this is the hallway to the greenhouse.
Oh gosh.
The family's way over there.
There are
And
like
side of
two.
the
There are
house.
like 2 acres on the other side.
Yeah, I don't have the sound studio up and all that yet, so
I can't wait to get down there, dude.
let's see.
Find time one day. I'm traveling. We all been super sick the last couple of weeks, so it wouldn't be good to go down there. But probably bring the girls down there sometime in March. I don't know. You let me know.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely love to have you guys up here. We should actually do this and record one of these together. Gonna sit in the same room. Maybe after a class and we're all mad about it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Zoom recording it stopped because it's Zoom and it's a Zoom thing.
Mm.
That's not the same thing as the YouTube one. It's still going.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but when it'll take like 3 hours to upload or whatever when we're done recording it, and then I'll go in there and edit all the ums out and
Um,
all the awkward silences. But
all the audio malfunctions. I was like, dude, I don't. 'Cause you know what? I've used three platforms: Zoom, Teams, and WebEx. And so like and then now I actually have this is my personal laptop up, not my work computer. And I
mhm.
haven't been on my personal laptop in months. So I'm just like, oh God, I hope this thing still works. Let me plug it in.
Yeah, like when we came back from Thailand, I've had problems with like random subscriptions and things because like the they're all the subscriptions are tied to our location in Thailand. We're making it
Mm.
difficult to like get things done. Uh, but figuring it out one application at a time, it seems like. Same thing with this YouTube channel, right? Like we were trying to get like the YouTube live thing to work, but it said my location was Thailand and it wouldn't let me go live.
Oh gosh.
We got to
It
figure it out.
wouldn't let you do like a VPN or something like that, or it just was just like, nah, man.
That was in the moment. It was in the moment of trying to get this thing going.
Oh, I got you.
It's too hectic. Yeah. But back to any other application points, I think we pretty much covered it. I'm sure that people ask us questions, but so feel free to reach out to us in the chat. You'll see a description. I'll put a link to Mark's LinkedIn and my
Oh
LinkedIn, so feel
gosh.
free to reach out. Oh, don't worry, Mark. The 7 people on the chat won't
Yeah.
know you all at once. All
Don't
right.
overwhelm me.
All right. So with that said, I'm Mike. And that's Mark. See you guys next week. Good night.